Welcome to Toffee Blue View, your source for all things Everton. I'm Gerry. Paul and Terry are here. The brothers McAllister. All right. So, guys, I don't know if you heard, there's something happening during this summer called the World Cup. But let's discuss the Everton players that are there.
Mm-hmm.
There's really not many. I actually thought there were more. There's only 3. Seriously, I was expecting to see, and because we had several players who were like maybes.
Yeah.
You know, like Onyekuru and Funes Mori and Nias, and these are players, like I thought there would be a longer list. No, 3. But they're 3 impact players for their countries. Okay, so I think we could take a little solace in that. England's number 1, Jordan Pickford. I love saying that. Feels good. Very cathartic. I think he's gonna have a great tournament. Anybody worried about Pickford? Either one of you guys?
Yeah.
Terry, what do you think?
The England goal.
You're worried?
The England goalkeeper at a World Cup is always a very high risk job, because how many times have they been blamed or lambasted in the press because a goal they should have saved? I would love it if he got a 3-week injury in the first minute of the first game, just so he wasn't in the firing line, because I have seen a lot of tournaments where the goalkeepers don't come out looking very well. I mean, seriously, I think it's going to be massive for his career, because he's a young player and he's going to his first international tournament as the England number 1. He'll come back stronger, but I am worried. I'm a little bit worried.
Paul, how about you? You worried?
You can't get away from that fear that something terrible is going to happen. It's happened to so many England goalkeepers. It's happened to Seaman in Brazil 2002. It happened to Robert Green, most notably in 2010 against guess which team. Happened to him. Joe Hart was terrible in the European Championships a couple of years ago. It seems to be England teams don't typically do well, but when there tends to be disaster, it's normally a defender or a goalkeeper that kind of ends up drawing the short straw and ends up being the person who everyone takes their wrath out on. So, yeah, I really don't like the idea of Pickford going to the World Cup, having one mistake, and then he's just lambasted in the national media for months and months and months. I really don't like that. I mean, Pickford seems a very level-headed, mentally confident type of guy, so I don't really think that could get him down if that were to happen. Hopefully it doesn't, but if it's where, I think the guy has the confidence and the mental strength to kind of get over that and grow. But obviously, just from an Everton fan point of view, I don't want to see any of our players go there and have a bad time. The World Cup's meant to be the pinnacle of a player's career. I really hope he goes there and he plays out of his skin and justifies Gareth Southgate's decision to play him over Butland, because there's a lot of people in the country over here who don't think he should be the number 1. I do personally, and a lot of Evertonians do, but there's a lot of people who would rather see Butland. So, as Terry said, part of you thinks, well, if disaster's going to strike, better it happened to that guy than it happened to ours. But I'm hopeful for Pickford. I think he's going to be there and be okay, hopefully. And even if something terrible does happen, I think that he's strong enough to get over it if it does happen. I don't think Pickford's the type of guy who would just let a terrible mistake in a World Cup, if it were to happen. I must stress, if it were to happen, I don't think he's the type of guy to let that kill his career like Robert Green did, most noticeably 6 years ago. So Pickford, I'm pulling for him, man. If Pickford starts the World Cup, which he probably will, he's the number 1, but if Butland at any point gets in over him, I'll be very, very displeased for him, because it did happen once. We started the 2010 World Cup with Green, one mistake, he was out. David James played the rest of the tournament. So if Jack Butland ends up at some point playing over Jordan Pickford, my interest in the England team goes right down the toilet.
I will agree with that. Maybe it's because I'm not from England and I haven't suffered the same England national team heartache that you guys have suffered in terms of major tournaments sometimes. Because I hear really sad stories where oh, we were gonna win and then it should have been a red card and it's not and it hurt really bad. It's a bunch of really, but I actually think England's gonna be good. I actually think they'll do well. I don't know they're going to win, but I actually think they're going to have a pretty good showing this time round. I don't know. And Pickford seems like the kind of guy who just doesn't care. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy who lets the pressure get to him. It's like he throws on his rave music and just pushes it out.
He doesn't get
I love that about him.
That's all.
What was that?
He doesn't get bogged down with the kind of the expectations.
Yeah.
The complete opposite of Joe Hart. I mean, Joe Hart looked like he wants to fight somebody in the tournament, and he got a lot of criticism for that. Guy, people saying he was too worked up, but as I can think Pickford, if England went out the World Cup, I think Pickford would just be like a lot of Evertonians. He'd be like, right, that's done. Back home to Finch Farm. Let's just crack on with the season. Maybe he absolutely loves England and he would break his heart if something happens. But I think, as I reiterated, I think no matter what happens with this tournament of England, whether they go to the final and win, or whether they go out because of a calamity, I think Pickford will come back from the World Cup absolutely fine, no matter what happens.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident for the guy. I'm nervous for him. I definitely get you guys being worried for him. I do agree with that in terms of being nervous for him, but at the same time, I just think he's just that guy who's like, he's so young and he's just like, whatever, I'm playing. I'm here to play. It's just, I don't know. That's the vibe I get from him. So I hope it doesn't get to him.
This is the first tournament where England have they've gone with they seem like they've gone with the mentality of most other countries where it's not a massive media circus. We need to win this tournament. We should win this tournament. They're just sort of going to go. They've got a young team. A lot of players aren't even. They've got only a few caps. Some haven't even been capped at all, and they're going with a sort of. I don't want to say pressure-free, but a sort of a more relaxed sort of mentality. Like, well, no one thinks we're going to win it anyway, so let's just go and show what we can do. We're a young group. There's not many, if any, old players apart from maybe Gary Cahill. So it could be that we've seen the younger sort of age brackets England teams doing really well recently as well. Like Calvert-Lewin, for example, scored the goal to win his age classes World Cup. Kieran Dowell did the same. So it could go right the way up. And I'm not suggesting England will win the World Cup because they won't, but they could they could surprise a few. They could go and say, well, this is what we can do. We've got a different mentality this time, a different sort of attitude, a different setup, different formation, everything. Just we'll prove people wrong because nobody's given them a chance this time. Whereas every other World Cup and every other tournament, the mentality sort of been like, well, we should win this, so we should be close to winning it. Whereas this time it's like, oh, they're no good. So they could work in their favour.
Well,
anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, one thing I would say is one thing I like about England is this time around, the manager they have, it's sort of, in a lot of tournaments when England go to the World Cup, it feels like how we perform in the World Cup is basically going to define how that manager is remembered. I mean, Hodgson had his entire career on the line when he took over England. Capello will always have the successes from the 90s, but again, he was sort of viewed as a joke after what happened with England. Oh, guy washed up, shouldn't have hired him in the first place. It seems the case of no matter what happens, Gareth Southgate is not going to really be damaged. What happens, and I think the pressure that Southgate, because Southgate himself realises that he's not under pressure, that's kind of trickled down to the players. So it's like, right, well, what's the worst that can happen? If we get beat, we get beat. So what? We've been beat 100 times. Nobody's going to laugh at us any worse than they've already laughed at us. It's not going to ruin Gareth Southgate's chances of ever managing again, like it did with Roy Hodgson. I mean, he's with Crystal Palace now, but he's there to basically just salvage the remains of his managerial reputation, really, isn't he? Capello, I don't think really managed seriously again after England. Sven-Göran Eriksson didn't really do anything. I mean, so it just feels like because there's so much pressure that's not on Southgate. Southgate himself has handled the situation so well. I think that's kind of trickled down to the players, including Pickford, and they are feeling as relaxed as he is, sort of thing. So I think that, again, I think England will be okay. I think England will get out the groups pretty easily. I don't see them finishing above Belgium, but I think they'll get out the group, and if they get a decent draw, I could see them making the quarterfinals. And as I said, I really hope Pickford plays a massive part in any success England has.
Yeah. So we could do a whole segment just on Pickford in England, to be honest with you, but because there's a cap on time here, Idrissa Gueye starts for Senegal. He'll probably play almost all of their games. I would say almost every minute of their games. We know how good he is. He'll be there. We know he's a strong player.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't foresee Senegal going super far.
Hopefully not.
I just don't. I additionally don't see Iceland going super far either with Gylfi Sigurdsson. They're just, I see them as, you know, I feel like they took us by storm at the Euros, and I feel like this time we're going to see them coming in terms of the rest of the world. I actually don't think they're going to get out of the first round. I don't even think they're going to get to the knockouts, to be honest. But yeah, those two guys, Gylfi's the most important player to Iceland.
Yeah.
He is their playmaker. He is their set piece genius. It's cool that we have 3 impact players. I just wish we had more than 3.
I'm very, very worried that Garnegay is going to end up getting some sort of serious injury and miss the start of the season. That's why I really.
You guys are making me worry about that now. I'm super worried about these injuries.
When during Gay's first season, when he went to the African Cup of Nations and he went over there for about a month, when he was our player of the season before he went, I was biting my fingernails thinking he's going to break his ankle, he is going to catch some sort of crazy disease, he's going to get kidnapped and not turn up. Something is going to happen. It's just how it happens with Everton. The players who play really well, then they go to play for their country outside of Everton's control, and it just all sort of just goes wrong. So I really hope Sigurdsson and especially Gay are home early. They do not go very far. Sorry to anyone who's Icelandic or Senegalese, but I just don't like. The less our guys play out there, the less chance something terribly catastrophic like an injury can happen. So I just get those guys back, get them ready in the pre-season, get them ready for August.
Terry, are you of the same view on that?
No, not quite as extreme as that. I do understand it. I mean, we're all selfish deep down. We'd love them to just get back fit and healthy for the first day of pre-season. But I mean, my worry I said I was worried about Pickford. It's not injuries. It's Pickford very different boat because of the national press, and he has to come home to this country after the tournament, and he's under the microscope. Sigurdsson and Ghana, I'm fine with them doing well. I actually think Iceland are going to surprise people at this one. Obviously, they're not going to be in the top 4 teams, but I think they could be the Burnley of the World Cup. I think just through hard work, organisation, I think they could really impress people because they did it at the Euros, and it's not that long ago. It's more or less the same team. I'd love both of them to do really well to a point, because they're not going to win it. They're not going to be right up till the end. They're not going to be coming back and with the season already started. But they're both, well, especially Sigurdsson, he's a star for his country, and it's probably going to be, how old is he? 28. It's more or less going to be last World Cup. He'll be a veteran at the next World Cup if they even get to it, because they're a very small country, and this is the first one they've ever been to. This is his chance. This is his chance for Sigurdsson on the big World Cup stage. I really hope he absolutely blitzes it. And Garnegay, I think he'll do what Garnegay does. He'll just run around tackling everything to death until they tell him there's no more games to play. He'll just play with a smile on his face as ever. I hope those two do well. I obviously hope Pickford does well, but the only one I'm genuinely a little bit worried for is Pickford, and that's not from injuries, that's from press.
Yeah. I think we could also do a whole separate segment on how, for some reason, the English press likes to kind of make the national team nervous and kind of stew up controversy before the World Cup. I've never noticed it before, but I haven't really been examining it as closely as I have this time. That's a whole separate segment we could do about that. Anyway, so we will move on then from the Everton players. Who's your Golden Boot winner for this 2018 World Cup? Terry, you want to start?
Lionel Messi. It's his.
Who's he?
It's from a little unknown club that play in Catalonia. I think it's his year. It's his, much like age-wise with Sigurdsson. The next World Cup, he'll be a veteran player and not at the peak of his powers anymore. but multiply that to the nth degree because it's Lionel Messi. I think this is the one where he says, right, this is my time. I'm on a different planet to any player who's here. I'm going to try and win this World Cup, and I'm going to try and win this Golden Boot. So it's a very obvious choice, but it isn't at the same time because he's not really performed to his normal level for Argentina at any tournament. But I think this is the one where he'll just go, forget the rest of you guys, I'll do it myself. So I think Lionel Messi.
Gotcha. Paul, Golden Boot winner.
It's a choice between two, Neymar or Griezmann, France. Because I think Neymar will depend on how Brazil do. Because if Brazil are kind of just the Neymar show, like they were 4 years ago, I mean, a lot of people were picking them to win 4 years ago in their own country, and then the moment they lost him and they had to play Germany in the semi-final, the all sort of happened. Really, they felt that they weren't even a team. Well, Neymar now they're better now, but I think it depends if Brazil gets its act together and they go right to the latter stages. I could see Neymar scoring a lot of goals along the way. But I really think it's the time of Griezmann. I think Griezmann's had a brilliant last 2-3 years. He's just won the Europa League with Atletico. He was in the Champions League final the year before that. Big story that he's about to leave Atletico for a Barcelona or Manchester United. I think I think Griezmann is in the absolute peak of his powers right now, and I can see Griezmann scoring at least a dozen goals and possibly taking them all the way to the trophy. So I think it's between Griezmann and Neymar. I would probably just lean towards Griezmann because I just feel I can just picture France winning it a little bit more than I can Brazil. So I would lean towards Antonio and Griezmann. I will say this, I do not think Argentina will go very far at all. I think Argentina will go out before the semis. I just don't. Wow. I don't look at that team, and I don't think that team's particularly strong. I mean, maybe they could surprise us. Maybe if Messi, as we said, Terry was saying, if Messi just turns it on and we see the Messi that we know he's capable of being, then we could see that. But Argentina, I do not. Argentina, I do not see it at all. Them even making the semi-final. I think they will go out quite, not early, but they will not get very far. In my opinion, personally.
My Golden Boot winner, Suarez, at Uruguay. Saying that because it seems like his group is not very strong. His group looks kind of weak, and I think Uruguay looks really good. I'm kicking myself for picking a former Red. I don't do that with good conscience. I'll just go ahead and tell you I'm very conflicted in my soul. But I don't know. I just think they have a lot of talent on that team. It's a good mix of veteran players and youth. And I just think Suarez is the guy. I don't know. Messi's teammate. So, yeah. Anyway, whether or not that happens, we'll see. The only thing that gives me pause about that is I think a lot of the teams in Group A park the bus often. They play very defensive. So I think that may hurt his chances a bit. So, guys, who's your underdog success story? The team that maybe people aren't really, not a traditional powerhouse that may make a little bit more of a dent than expected. All right, let's start with Paul this time.
It might seem obvious, and I don't know if you could class them as underdogs, given what they've just achieved. But I don't see a lot of people talking about them as possible winners. Portugal. They're a very organised outfit. A lot of the players that won 2 years ago are still there. Ronaldo looks as good as ever. I mean, again, I don't think they'll go all the way and win, but I don't see any reason why they can't go far in the tournament. They know how to park the bus, but they know how to do it effectively. They know how to just sort of bog teams down. They know how to take their moments when they get them. I think they had one shot on target when they won the final in France. That one guy who won it in extra time for them, and they did it without Ronaldo for the vast majority of the game. I don't think Portugal, as reigning European champions, are getting enough respect as they deserve. I think Portugal are just a team that are so well organised. They've got one or two superstar players still in their pomp. They've got a lot of other players who work hard and are willing to stay in the background and let the superstars get all the attention. I just think Portugal are a team that don't sleep on them. I think Portugal deserve a lot more respect than what they're getting.
Okay. Terry, who's your underdog that people aren't really talking about? You think can go further than expected?
I'm going to say Mexico, because Mexico tend to get underestimated a lot. They always beat Brazil. They always beat Argentina. They've got some good players, like Lozano, who we're linked with. He's a superstar over there. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think they're gonna win the World Cup, but I would not take them lightly. I think they're an excellent team, and people underestimate them based on their name, not on how good they are, because they beat bigger and better teams.
Mexico got some crazy record. Like, they haven't got past the round of last 16 in like 30, 40 years. Is that right?
I actually don't know that.
I mean, they've been. I think they've been to so many World Cups. They've been in pretty much nearly every one, I think. But they've got, like, I remember reading something on ESPN, I think it was, they have a really strange record where they tend to get out the group, but then they don't go any further than that, and they've done that at pretty much every World Cup in recent memory. I'm pretty sure that's true. I read that. So it's sort of their whole World Cup is based around whether they can beat this jinx that they've got. Can they win knockout football in the World Cup? They tend to get through the groups, but when it gets to the last 16, they sort of, no matter who they play, even if they play a team that they should beat on paper, they just seem to not. They seem to just have a mental breakdown, like England.
Mexico, by the way, if they finish second in their group, if Germany finishes first in their group and Mexico finishes second, Mexico would play Brazil in the opening game of the knockout round. So that honestly would be an awesome game to watch. But yeah, it'd be tough for them to overcome that record that you're mentioning if that is true. I know a lot about Mexico. I've seen them a lot because they're in CONCACAF, so they're like our nemesis or one of our nemesis. They're great though, and I actually don't have the rivalry with them that a lot of American supporters do. I like watching Mexican League football. I like watching that. I like Mexico's team, and I like Lozano, and I hope he comes to us. He's a sharp little player. So yeah, that's a good call. I'll be curious if they get past the opening game of the second round though, of the knockout round, because it's a tough draw for them, I think. I wrote two countries down for my underdog success. I feel like no one's talking about Serbia, and I was looking on paper at the players they have, and they just have a lot of talent. Kolarov, Dusko Tosic, Marko Grujic, Nemanja Matic, Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, who is an amazing player, Dusan Tadic, Alexander Mitrovic. I mean, they just have a lot of players that are kind of, I mean, I know the big one that I've heard most about is Milinkovic-Savic, who I think United are really trying to sign right now. Just better players than I expected. I had no idea all these players that I have heard of from various leagues around Europe. Some of them are kind of past their prime, I would say, but there's some that are, I don't know. I just think it's a stronger team, but I don't think, the problem is if they get out of their group and if they're second, they play Germany in that round, and I don't think they're getting past Germany. But in the other team I wrote down, Morocco, they look strong. They won the African Cup of Nations in the final. They won 4-0. Okay, this is just a really entertaining squad to watch. They're in the group with Spain and Portugal, which is unfortunate, and it's not easy to get out of that one. But I could see Morocco finding a way out of that group. Just saying, they're better than advertised, I think. People are sleeping on them. So, lastly, who's your World Cup champs, guys? Let's see here. I think, did we go Terry first last time, and now we go to Paul?
Yeah.
My World Cup pick. I wouldn't be surprised if Spain managed it. I think that team. It's a lot older now. There's a lot of new talent coming through, but I think a lot of those old alumni like Ramos and Iniesta, and I think Busquets is still involved with Spain. I think those guys have still got one last epic run in them type thing. I would not be surprised if Spain went all the way and managed it, and they've got a lot of other great players as well that haven't really played a part at the previous championships, but they're absolutely brilliant Champions League level players. Koke for Atletico Madrid, Isco, Diego Costa I think is still their number 9, is he? They've got Morata as well, and I know Morata had a bit of a bad time at Chelsea, but Morata's still a goal scorer when you need him to be. And I just really, and De Gea in goal, obviously, I think Spain are a team that have just got one last great hurrah in them. I really do. I think Spain might just shade it, or if not them, I think France are the obvious favourites, but I would really like Spain, man. I think Spain could go all the way, honestly.
I know we were talking about that off camera last week, and I thought that's a really fair shout. I was just looking past them repeatedly, and yeah, they're still Spain, and there's no reason why they can't run this. Terry, who's your pick?
Germany, easy. I honestly, much like Real Madrid in the Champions League final, I just think they've got the experience, they've got winners in every position. There's some good other teams, like France are another obvious one. France have got a great team, but I just think when it comes down to it, Germany could make 3 good starting 11s with their players. They could make a good 11 with their standby players, and it's not all about there's quality all throughout the tournament, but there's not winning experience all throughout the tournament. They know how to win World Cups. I think this will be Germany's year again, much like when France won the World Cup and then they won the Euros straight after. Same with Spain a little bit later on. Okay, Germany didn't win the Euros, but I think Germany will win back-to-back World Cups before this team of theirs breaks up, and then in 10, 20 years you'll talk about the Germany team of this era, just because there was bigger stars out at the time, but they were a team of winners. The Real Madrid last year, I think, is the perfect comparison. They weren't on paper the best team in the tournament, but they knew how to win the tournament, and they did.
Yeah, I picked Germany as well, mainly because watching them play, what was the Confederations Cup? I believe that was in Russia as well. Chile was there, Mexico was there, and Chile and Mexico brought their strongest squads, and Germany brought like a second or third string, and Germany looked just the strongest out of all of them, and that wasn't even their first team. It's just sickening how their system works, how they constantly, one player's out, they just fill in with another one. It's so well run. I just can't. I don't like. I feel like it's a boring pick. It's such a boring pick. I'm not a fan of picking the one that I feel like everybody else is picking. But I told myself in the beginning when I saw how Germany's been doing, and I don't care how their most recent friendly went. If I thought that, then I would say France definitely isn't going to do well because they just tied the U.S. Okay, they just drew with the U.S. But France is sickeningly talented too. I just think they don't go together like, piece together like a machine the way Germany does. It's interlocking pieces. One goes out, another can come in. I don't know. That's what I got to go with. I told myself I wouldn't flip flop on this, so I'm going to stick with it. So our sweepstakes, and I was Skyping with John when he used the website to be able to assign different countries to all of our different YouTube podcast personalities, but also our writers for the Toffee Blues website. So here's how it ended up. John with the Toffee Blues website, who was doing the actual sweepstake, got Germany.
Fix.
Funny how that works, John. Just saying. And then immediately right out the gate, I follow it with Nigeria. So my pick.
You got the best jersey, man. At least
I do have some the hipster pick for let's go buy a new kit. You know what I mean? Max had Spain, right, which I think he's pretty okay with. I think Max is picking Germany, by the way, as well. David got Denmark, and apparently he got Denmark in another pool as well, so that happens. Tom, who has appeared on our video, I think a couple weeks ago, but he also writes for the website, got Saudi Arabia. So that's a tough one because I think they switched managers like really recently, and it's not an easy thing for them. Edward got Belgium, which if you know Edward, this is so Edward. Belgium is so Edward. All right, just saying. It's a long conversation why, but yeah, it matches him. Paul, Costa Rica.
There are better teams. There are worse teams.
Oviedo,
they're a decent outfit. They've got some good players, and as Terry's just said, they've got Brian Oviedo. So how can you hate Costa Rica?
Yeah, because he's like the nicest guy in the world. You know, yeah. I'm gonna follow that guy forever because I'm just like,
me too, man.
Jacob, who writes for the Toffee Blues website, got England, which is a good. I think that's a good pick. Just saying, I've got faith. Thomas, who has been writing stories for the Toffee Blues website, got Peru, which is a solid pick now that they've got their star striker reinstated for the World Cup. So that's a thing. Terry, you have Iceland, who noticed Terry was talking about Iceland earlier, and he got Iceland, so that works out well. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, and much like David, I also got Iceland in a work sweep, so I seem to be destined to get Iceland. But yeah, I'm fine with that.
Right on. And Paul F got Australia. Okay, so guys, just to quickly, just very quickly, I don't think Nigeria is going to get out of their group. Okay, Paul, do you think Costa Rica is going to get out of their group?
Probably not. I mean, I've watched them in the friendlies. They played England, and then they've played Belgium, and they've looked quite poor in both games, especially against. I mean, they took the lead against Belgium, but then they just got blown away. And they've got one or two good players. They've got Navas. They've got Joe Campbell from Arsenal. They've got Oviedo, clearly. But other than that, I don't see it personally. I mean, I just don't think they've got the firepower.
Gotcha. Terry, Iceland get out of their group?
Who knows? I mean, I just love the story of Iceland, to be honest. They're the smallest country to ever play in the World Cup, population-wise. I mean, I think it's like something like 300,000, 330,000 people there, which is, for a country, like ridiculous. Like, it's like I saw a fact that if the entire population of Iceland was in a city, then in the US it'd be the 57th smallest, biggest city, so it wouldn't even make the top 50 cities. Wow. So the fact that they can even get to a World Cup is unbelievable. I just love their story. I want them to do so well. Whether they will, who knows?
Iceland is sort of the chic pick for a lot of US football fans who will be watching. They
like the clap.
Yeah, they love the clap. The Viking clap does so much, and actually there's certain teams like throughout America, and they're doing it too. So that's a thing. I mean, I like.
No point about Iceland is, can you believe they don't have a single professional football club? Iceland don't have a single professional football club at all. So none of those players who are from Iceland play in Iceland. They've all had to just go abroad to achieve their dreams.
Jeez.
I think they've got, like, you could probably count on your fingers the amount of actual football pitches they actually have for people to train on, like academies and things like that. It's so tiny. There's nothing there.
That is fascinating.
No football clubs. No pitches. All these players who are clearly Iceland boys all had to go abroad when they were teenagers just to even have a shot of becoming a footballer, just because there's no place to develop even in that. So it would be a great story. It would be great for the country if they could have some success, as Terry's saying, but I don't see it personally, not unless Skilfy steals the show. So
no, Argentina and Croatia in their group, I can see them getting out of the group. But you never know. Croatia could have a bad tournament. I mean, Argentina. I mean, one of the big teams is going to have to.
There's always a big flop, isn't there?
Big disaster. So maybe, but they do really well to get out of that group. Yeah.
So, guys, I guess that's it for our World Cup preview. If you've been digging the videos, please subscribe. We're nearing the 830 mark and slowly crawling up to 900. So thanks for that. You're awesome. Leave a like, leave a comment, all that hot stuff. Check out Terry and Paul, probably starting in August on the Liverpool Echo fan jury. They'll be writing pieces there. So yeah, look out for them. And also, Paul's got stuff on the Toffee Blues website. Check out his analysis there.
Yeah, new one coming soon.
Awesome. Yes, very cool. So I guess that's it. We're going to move on to our next video. All right, guys? Thanks a lot. All right, bye.